Have you ever felt like a storm was building inside you, but no one could see it? That silent rage, the boiling anxiety, the confusion that spins in your chest while your face stays still. We all know this feeling, the pressure rising, the pulse quickening, the desire to explode. But something tells you to hold it in. And maybe that quiet control is exactly where your power lives. Because the strongest storms aren't the ones we unleash, they're the ones we master. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to break down to be taken seriously. You don't need to explain the war inside your soul. In fact, the more silent you are, the more powerful your presence becomes. When you learn how to face your inner chaos without reacting to it outwardly, you tap into a strength most people never discover. The kind of strength that doesn't seek attention. The kind of strength that radiates calm while everything else burns around it. Think about the people you admire, not the loudest, not the flashiest, but the ones who carry a quiet force. That calm you feel when they enter a room. That's not magic, that's self-mastery. The world teaches us to react, to speak, to fight. But silence is rebellion. It's choosing not to be a puppet, not to be pulled by strings of emotion. It's the moment you take control of yourself before trying to control the world. You're not weak because you don't scream. You're strong because you can feel deeply and still choose stillness. This video will show you how to master that internal storm, how to recognize your emotional weather, how to build a sanctuary within yourself where no storm can touch you. But first, ask yourself, are you fighting your storm or fueling it? When you choose silence over reaction, something unexpected happens. Your inner storm begins to settle. It's not because the world outside has changed, but because you have decided not to give it your energy. This is where real control starts, not by fighting the storm, but by not feeding it. Most people believe power comes from speaking louder, defending harder, or explaining faster. But true power, it lives in restraint, in pausing, in that sacred moment where you feel the rage rising, but you don't let it take over. In that space, you become the storm's master, not its victim. Stoicism teaches us that we are not disturbed by things, but by our perception of them. That means the same storm that breaks one person strengthens another. So the question isn't, how do I stop the storm? It's, how do I stand still while it passes? The storm doesn't deserve your voice. It doesn't deserve your reaction. Your calm is not weakness. It's weaponized self-control. And every time you choose stillness over chaos, you send a message louder than words. You don't control me. I control me. And here's the hidden truth. People notice. They may not say it out loud, but they feel your shift. You become unpredictable, unreachable, untouchable. That's when your energy becomes sacred and your silence untouchable power. But staying calm doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means becoming aware of them without letting them steer the wheel. Anger will rise, frustration will visit, anxiety may knock, but none of them have to take the lead unless you hand them the keys. You don't have to match anyone's chaos with your own. Just because someone throws fire doesn't mean you must burn too. In fact, the more composed you remain, the more power shifts to your side. Because while they unravel, you remain collected, and that's terrifying to those who thrive on control. Every time you respond with calm instead of conflict, you make your presence louder and stronger. You become a mirror to others. They're forced to see themselves reflected in your silence. Their games no longer work, their tricks lose power, and your peace begins to feel like a threat they can't touch. The true mastery of the inner storm is not in changing what's around you, it's in refusing to let it change what's inside you. You become still, anchored, untouchable. If you're ready to stop reacting and start rising with calm power, subscribe now, because the next chapter in your growth is one click away, and it starts right here. The world will try to provoke you. People will poke at your insecurities, your silence, your calm, because they don't understand it. They'll mistake your stillness for weakness, your lack of reaction for indifference. But what they don't see is that inside that silence you're sharpening your edge. Reaction is easy. Anyone can lash out, argue, or defend themselves. But staying grounded when everything around you screams for chaos, that takes mastery. And that mastery is not for show. It's for growth, for peace, for reclaiming your control when the world wants to pull it away. When you learn to breathe through the discomfort, to pause before you speak, to sit with your emotions without acting on them, you stop being someone others can manipulate. You're no longer dancing to their tune. Instead, you set your own rhythm, and that rhythm is silence. The storm inside you begins to shift, no longer a violent surge of emotion, but a deep ocean of awareness. And from that stillness, you start making your choices, not from fear, not from pressure, but from power, quiet power, the kind no one can take away from you. Silence doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've decided not to waste your energy proving your strength. When the storm rages inside, anger, fear, frustration, it's tempting to react, to defend, to shout. But what if real control isn't about reacting at all? What if it's about staying grounded while the world tries to pull you apart? Every time you react, you're giving a piece of yourself away. Your peace, your focus, your power. It drips out through your words. But when you wait calmly, something shifts. People notice. They feel your strength without you needing to explain it. That's power, quiet power. You begin to see the triggers before they fully form. You watch the emotional wave rise, but you don't let it crash into your actions. You breathe. You pause. And in that pause, you become untouchable. Calm isn't passivity, it's calculated stillness. A storm waiting behind steel gates. You have control, not because you're unaffected, but because you choose when and how to respond, or not respond at all. The more you practice this, the less you're controlled by others. You start to feel the gap widen between stimulus and reaction, and inside that gap, you build power. Real power. Not the kind you shout about, the kind that makes people lean in because your silence is louder than their noise. Waiting isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And it becomes your secret weapon in a world that runs on chaos. Let others burn themselves out. Let them guess what you're thinking. Let them try to provoke. You wait. You build. You gain. Because in the space between reaction and response is where your mastery begins. Silence isn't absence, it's presence intensified. And when that silence stems from inner control, it becomes your most commanding force. The world expects noise, a reaction, an argument, a defense. But when you give them stillness instead, it's like pulling the ground out from under their expectations. True power doesn't raise its voice. It sits in the calm. It watches. It chooses. This is where you begin to control the storm, not outside, but inside. The eye of the storm is the calmest place. That's where your mind must live, not in the chaos, but in the center. People will try to trigger you. They'll test your patience, poke at your insecurities, push your limits. But if you've built your foundation on silent strength, they'll find nothing to grab onto, nothing to shake, because power that isn't shown is the hardest kind to break. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't owe the world your outrage. Your stillness is enough. And in that stillness, you gain time to think, space to breathe, and the advantage of strategy. While others burn their energy in impulsive responses, you reserve yours for what truly matters. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's not passivity, it's purposeful restraint. You're not avoiding battle. You're choosing the battlefield. You're not afraid to speak. You're smart enough to know when silence speaks louder. This level of control doesn't come from pretending. It comes from practicing daily, intentionally, powerfully. So ask yourself, if you stopped reacting, how much more would you notice? How much power would return to you? What could you become if your energy wasn't constantly leaking into every noise that demanded your attention? Think about it. And if you're ready to take back that power, if you want more strategies to harness inner calm and master the unseen battles, then subscribe now and hit the bell. Don't just watch change, be the change.